Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital.
Dean, it takes a special type of commitment to be the best leader that you can be. And inside of any organisation, I think that, we grow and we develop, but ultimately commitment is really the most important part. And then the secondary part is actually learning how to be a leader. Some people need a title to be a leader. I don't. Ultimately, I don't need to be in control either. But if no one else is in control, then I'm absolutely going to be in control. So Dean, let's talk a bit about commitment to being a great leader and to being the best that you can be. What are your thoughts here when you hear these types of subjects?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you're right. I think in, leadership is at all levels. We had an induction today, and in our business, and there was, a number of associates and support people in there. And as far as I'm concerned, they're all leaders. They're all leaders of our values. They're all leaders of our vision. They're all leaders of their own behaviour. So, I think if we look at our leadership, I think it's a commitment. Being a great leader, I think, is a commitment to your own self-discovery. Because you're always learning as a leader. I think that, having a personal growth mindset, I think, is crucial because you have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible, you have to be willing to get out of your own way sometimes because, you don't have to always be the solutions maker. I think that, if you're going to inspire and motivate others, you've got to earn that right. It doesn't come with a title, I think, and you can find leadership in all places depending upon the circumstance. So, I guess to your point of how do you be the best leader, I think you've got to have a mindset of enablement, a mindset of servitude where, how do you make people's lives better? How do you compel people to move forward? How do you help people to sort of, deal with their self-awareness and and even yourself? Because I think as a leader, you've got to be able to step into that space of vulnerability because if you're going to lead, then I think leadership is also by example, not necessarily you actually having to be on the tools leading in every step of the way. I think there is different leaders in the business that can play those sorts of role. Mm-hmm. But if you sort of take a leader and somebody who's driving leadership within an organisation as a specific focus, then you've got to embody, I guess, the values and the ethics and the behaviours that you want others to display. So it's really about your energy, right? Because people buy energy, mm-hmm. And so those things are crucial. And then I think there's probably 6 or 7 things that I would say I'm committed to as a leader, and that's probably the first one. Or it's probably the second one when you think about self-discovery, self-awareness. You've got to be always on that. And any time you're off that, then often you'll find your business is off track too. But your communication, being able to communicate and build trust. To be a leader, it's hard to lead people if they don't trust you. And so understanding when perhaps you might be out of sync or out of alignment and knowing when to lean into those conversations. Like I found myself in a conversation last week where there was some lack of trust in potential leadership, some leadership capability in the business. Thankfully, that person felt comfortable enough to raise it with me that they have some concerns and they were losing some trust and they're having some frustrations and it could have easily got out of control. But being able to step into that moment and lean into it, show empathy, to be understanding, to recognise and be thankful for that feedback, and then to take that and turn that into an opportunity to enable that person who's now had themselves caught in a negative headspace was actually very, very useful. So that's key leadership, right? So having that environment of trust that you've built because you've invested in your team. Mm. So leadership for me is also how do you invest in the team? What are you doing around mentoring, coaching, training? How are you helping people with goal setting? How are you helping align goals between what the business goals are and theirs? What is it? And so it's not always about the stuff, the hard skills of the 101 of real estate. There's definitely that, and we do that too. But it's also how do you help with other stuff? How do you help with mindset and resilience and support and things? How do you help them make sure that they keep themselves honest about their relationship, what sort of parent they want to be, or what sort of partner? Mm. So I think leadership extends to investing in people and encouraging them to be creative. Encouraging them to be innovative and sort of have an environment where you can share ideas.
So, Dean, it's interesting when you watch it, like Howard Schultz, from Starbucks, the founder there, a huge company around the world, and his whole idea is about servant leadership. So when you are a leader, you're actually there to serve others, and that, the higher that you go, the more people that you actually have to serve. And what's interesting is that, their attempt at now putting a new CEO into that organisation, this is their third attempt at it, they're in a position that guy has made the decision that he's going to go and work inside of a Starbucks and actually be on the floor at least once a month for half a day. How important is it for leaders to be back in at the ground level in doing what you're asking other people to do, to be able to observe, to see things, to be able to lead in new and better ways, because they're not too far away from what actually happens in the day-to-day of actually being that inside of a business?
Well, I think the truth is, if you take that servanthood leadership, which I subscribe to enormously, I see, my role in Di Jones as a servant to the legacy of Di Jones, Di herself, really, and that means that's about how do I service my team and how do I make sure that I provide the safety, I guess, and the environment for collaboration and innovation to get better, and how to empower others. So I think you move away from being the controller to be able to coach and enable, and I think, having a good understanding of what's going on at the grassroots level certainly helps with that, because, it doesn't mean you have to be there doing it, but to actually take the time to understand and learn about it and to listen and keep your ear to the ground is quite crucial. Not every noise that somebody makes is actually real either. So it's actually learning how to get to the heart of what the real issues are. But once you've done that, how do you create How do you be the catalyst, I guess, for meaningful improvement? And I guess that's important, that people know that you're listening, and then they know that you're empathetic and they can trust you enough to come to you and say, right, here are some issues. Now, you're not always going to give them an answer just to appease them. And I know some people think that that's what you do. But it's also got to be the right thing for the business, and it's got to be the right thing for everybody else. Because just because it's good for one individual doesn't mean it's good for everyone else. So being a leader, you also need to have that conversation. You need to be able to go there with people and talk about stuff, and rather than just sort of appease people.
Yeah, the interesting thing too, sometimes you would think that you're going to get great feedback, and I often say that to business owners and principals. I'll say, hey, it's very rare that employees are going to turn around and say, hey, thanks so much for doing that for me, and you're great and you're amazing. They just kind of expect you to go and do that. Hence, I wrote the book called Lonely in Business, because I think there's a lot of people that are in business that are really lonely because they actually, they're always there just putting out.
So you wrote that?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And the interesting, you haven't read it?
You better get a copy of it.
So the interesting conversation is about learning what that looks like. Dean, when we come to the word commitment, tell us what commitment is to you. Like how do you actually commit to that worthy goal of becoming a better leader? What is commitment in the modern world?
I think commitment's just about doing what you say you're going to do, right? And following through and being authentic and being real, right? It's very easy to sort of make lots of promises and, sort of tap dance. But I think commitment's about you doing what you say you're going to do, and also not necessarily having to stick to having all the answers, but it's a commitment to getting an outcome. It's a commitment to a vision. It's a commitment to a purpose. It's not a commitment to a how and a what, right? So I think a commitment to a vision and a purpose, because that's the greater good, right? That's your North Star. The how and the what is really just tactical stuff that you don't need to hold on to, and can be very that can be where people often disagree. It's around, so it's not like you have to let go of the goal. It's about, but you perhaps might need to let go of things that are working or not working. So a commitment for me is not about what would you say, a steadfast view on how it should happen. It's about being pragmatic, and it's about all that stuff, because ultimately if we're committed to a goal or a vision, then the rest is really just tactics.
And I'm prepared to change.
Yeah, 100%. So being vulnerable around that, you know what I mean? So when you hear some feedback that perhaps you weren't expecting, then that's a moment to learn and grow, right? So if you're in that servant leadership perspective, then you have to be prepared to be vulnerable, and to actually be grateful for that feedback, because a lot of people, they need psychological safety, right? And if they can't rely upon you to create that safety, then they're not necessarily going to come and help you, achieve your goals.